Warm welcome to this lecture series on organizational behavior. We are in the third chapter, which is on personality, and this is the second lecture in this chapter. So I'll quickly summarize what happened in the previous lecture. This is the outline of this chapter. We defined what is personality. So personality can be defined as relatively stable characteristics of an individual which influence his or her behavior, attitudes, motivations and emotions. In other words, psychology believes that there is something called personality, or there are some inner qualities which are relatively stable, and those qualities influence the way we behave in different situations, and also they influence all the aspects of our behavior, which include attitude, motivation, emotion and things like that. In the previous lecture, we also questioned the idea of personality by asking, is there anything which is permanent quality of an individual which leads to all the behavioral differences among people? Because psychology as a discipline believes that individual differences between people are caused by personality. If you remember, in the earlier chapters we spoke about how psychology as a discipline believes each one of us are different, and the cause which can be attributed to these individual differences is personality. So there are theorists and researchers who question this concept of personality. We also looked at the history of the concept of personality. The word personality comes from the Latin word persona, which means mask. We also looked at in the previous lecture what are the key assumptions related to this concept of personality. So if you look at these assumptions, there are two major thought processes, or there are two major schools which look at personality in different way. So one school of thought believes that personality traits are universal in nature, or the idea of personality is universal in nature, which means there are certain qualities which is found among all the people in the entire world. So let's say if it is extraversion in India, the same concept of, or the same trait of extraversion can be found in any other country or any other culture. Another school of thought believes that no, personality or the qualities which constitute personality are not universal in nature, which means different cultures have different sets of qualities, or people in different cultures will have different sets of qualities. In second way in which these two schools differ is, one school believes that personality is stable, which means if somebody has a certain kind of a personality characteristic, it will stay there forever, and the personality as a quality starts at a very young age and you cannot really change personality qualities. On the same time, the other group believes that personality as a quality or personality as a characteristics can be changed, or it can vary from context to context. In fact, that is completely against this idea of personality as a stable characteristics. So it is relatively stable. So if you look at universality and stability, those group of psychologists believe in nature as a powerful determinant of personality, or in other words, these personality qualities are biological in nature, or they are inner qualities which are very, very stable, which cannot be changed, mostly because of biological factors. The other group which believes in uniqueness and dynamic nature of personality qualities believes that it is caused by nurture related factors or environmental factors. So somebody acquires these personality characteristics over a period of time through their experiences with the world. Okay, so again in psychology we call it nature nurture argument. So the interactionist perspective believe that both nature and nurture play an important role. So they both interact. So you cannot purely say everything is because of environmental factors or upbringing or society related factors. Similarly, you cannot say everything is based on biological factors. So they both interact with each other. So in psychology they say personality qualities or nature nurture argument as loaded gun argument, which means everybody has a certain quality, but whether that quality comes out or not depends on whether somebody pulls the trigger. Or in other words, mental illness especially, some people are more prone to mental illnesses because of biological reasons, but it's not that those people will become mentally ill irrespective of what the environmental conditions. So only when the environmental conditions trigger that particular biological quality, those people will become psychologically ill, mentally ill. So this is like vulnerability versus triggering factors. Okay. So in the previous class we looked at some of the arguments which support the biological determinants of personality, or people who support nature as a predominant cause for personality differences. So the first argument is hereditary. This group of psychologists or scientists believe that genetic traits play a very important role. So one important example or argument they place is, even among newborns there are individual differences. So these individual differences are genetic in nature. But again, the counter argument for this opinion is, or this finding is, even at a very young age children know how to react to certain kind of a social stimuli. So if their parents reward them by a smile whenever the baby is happy, the child or the baby tends to show signs of happiness more frequently. On the other hand, if the parents doesn't actually pay attention whether the child is smiling or not smiling or happy or not happy, children tend to be in a certain way, or infants tend to be in a certain way. Second argument is brain and its role in personality. So very common or popular argument is right brain, left brain, or depending on your brain dominance, individuals tend to show differences. But again, the counter argument for it is, it's not that brain leads to the way you behave, or brain determines, or brain shape or brain dominance leads to your behavior. It is also your behavior which can shape the brain. So the plasticity of the brain. So this is where we stopped. In fact, we also spoke about physical features. People with certain physical features tend to be of certain personality type. In fact, some of the very early theories on personality spoke about body type and personality. So it assumed that people who are thin will be of certain qualities, people who are fatter will be of certain qualities, people who are strong built will have certain kind of qualities. So they call it endomorphic, exomorphic and mesomorphic. So people of different body types will have different types of personality, again which is not scientifically proven. Okay, so we are going to look at the other side of the school of psychology, which talks about the role of social factors. So the assumptions behind these group of psychologists is, personality as a quality or qualities which define somebody's personality can be changed over a period of time, because those qualities are formed because of social factors. So it's not like you're born with a certain quality. It is because you are surrounded by a certain group of people, or you grew up in a certain kind of an environment, your personality changes. So some of the important arguments they place for their viewpoint is, for their stances, role of cultural norms. So in the first chapter we looked at the word norm. Norm means unwritten rules. So every society or every culture has some unwritten rules. So these unwritten rules are reinforced by people around us. So there are unwritten rules in terms of how men should behave, how women should behave, how children should treat elders, how in a group how one should behave, and things like that. So these unwritten rules, which are reinforced by people around us, shape our inner qualities, which is personality. So these cultural norms can vary from one culture to another culture. For example, certain cultures, the gender norms are not very rigid. In certain cultures, gender norms are clearly written. It says women should only do this and men should only do these kind of things. So if a woman does something which a man is allowed to do, it is considered to be wrong. Other way around. Okay, there are very clear-cut gender norms, social norms, and things like that. So these norms vary from one culture to another. Similarly, many researchers have, social psychologists, researchers as well as sociologists, anthropologists, they have found that certain behaviors are considered to be okay in certain cultures, and certain behaviors are considered to be prohibited in certain cultures. So a behavior which is allowed in a certain culture will not be allowed in some other cultures, and also certain behaviors are found only in certain cultures. For example, let's say in India we have something called possessing with a evil spirit or possessing with God. All those behaviors may not be found in all the cultures. It may be found in only certain cultures. So there are culture specific behaviors, there are culture specific social norms, and these cultural differences influence the way personality is formed. So if you remember in the brain dominance argument, many research has been done on gender differences in brain structure. Again, there are not very there are a lot of research which contradict those studies also. So those arguments are men and women differ in terms of the brain structure, and that's why they are different. So gender differences are biological. But again, it is to some extent, I'm not saying true, you find it in, it sounds very commonsensical also, because you find many women in arts related subjects, many men in science and engineering disciplines. And boys are found to be more aggressive, women are found to be, even at very young age, boys are like very naughty, they are very aggressive, but girl children are found to be very loving, caring, they are very matured enough to handle issues, but boys are very immature. So this is the kind of arguments which are placed, and these differences are attributed to biological reasons, because they are found in very young age itself. But is it because of biological differences, these gender differences in the disciplines they choose to study, their interests, their behavioral makeup and all those stuff? Not necessarily. These are cultural differences also. Okay. For example, why children or boys are more aggressive than girls? Because they are given toys which are aggressive in nature. Boys get toys which like guns, battleships, and things like that. Women children, they get very nurturing kind of toys, like maybe a Barbie doll or a house or cooking toy and things like that. So they are trained in a way that these qualities become imbibed in them when they grow up, even at a very young age. For example, even when they are born, the kind of dress they get, the kind of colors they have been given, the kind of toys they have been given, everything varies in terms of gender. So those social factors might cause gender differences. So you can extend this argument to personality differences also. So personality differences also because of our upbringing. So this is what these psychologists argue. So family and social factors play a very important role, especially the experiences one gets at the childhood, the formative years. When they grow up, whatever they see around them, those experiences influence their personality. So the way they are treated by their parents, the way they are treated by their school teachers, what is reinforced as right, wrong by their parents, by their teachers, by people around them, all those things influence how a person acquires certain qualities as personality traits. So these people who are very important for a child, like teacher, parents, grandparents, or friends, those people are called significant others. So this process of growing up, process of learning from the society, especially from significant others, is called as socialization. So the things which you learn from your interaction with the society, especially people who are very close to you. So socialization plays a very important role in shaping one's personality. And also, as children, we identify ourselves with significant others. So we call them role models. So many a times we copy or we acquire these qualities which might become stronger later in our life are from these significant others or from these role models. For example, when a child is very young, if you ask a child what kind of job what is going to be a profession in future, most children will say, I want to become a teacher, or it will say a profession which its parent is doing. Okay, why? Because the influence of role models is very, very high. So these are the arguments psychologists who insist on nurture put forth for why personality differences exist. Okay, so what is the truth? Is it nurture or is it nature? In fact, like I said, it is both. So certain things, we are born with certain kind of things, but whether those qualities or those characteristics come out or not depends on the environment in which we grow. So there is nothing like pure nature or pure nurture. It is the combination of both. Okay, so we are moving to the next part of this personality chapter, which is theories on personality. So what do we mean by theories of personality? Theories of personality are nothing but assumptions or certain propositions, statements which are made by certain psychologists based on their understanding of what is personality. So these statements or these propositions try to explain what is personality, how personality evolve, or what constitute or what are the qualities which are part of this personality and things like that. So there are different theories. So primarily I have given some of the important theories. So we will talk in brief because each of these theories are like very, very elaborate in nature. These are like works done by psychologists over a long period of time. So I will not be able to do justice to these theories if I elaborate one by one. I will quickly explain the crux of each of those theories. Okay. So the first theory which we are going to talk about is Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory. So these theories are called intrapsychic theories. Why they are called intrapsychic? Because these theories talk about something called mind. Psyche means mind or consciousness. So these set of theories talk about how consciousness shapes personality, or they talk about the larger idea of consciousness in which personality is also part of it. there are many theories in intrapsychic theory. We are going to talk only about Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytic theory. So like I said, these theories are based on, intrapsychic theories are based on the assumption that there is something called mind. Okay. So the whole idea of personality is to explain who we are, isn't it? So who we are defines what we do. So the idea here is who we are decides what we do. Since each one of us is different in terms of who we are, we exhibit different kinds of behaviors. Why, in other words, why for the same situations different people do different things is because of who they are as individuals. So who they are as individuals vary from one individual to another individual, which is individual differences. So this question of who we are, it is a very philosophical question. Who am I? So the direct answer for this from these group of psychologists who are called interpsychic theorists who believe in interpsychic approach is we are nothing but our awareness, or we are nothing but our mind. What is mind? Mind is awareness. Okay. So one important researcher in this area, not researchers, scholar in this area is Sigmund Freud. Many of you would have heard of his name, Freud. He's a very, very popular person in psychology. Even in common day-to-day conversations, many of us use this word Freud, Sigmund Freud. He is also known as father of psychology. Okay. So Sigmund Freud's contribution to this area of what is mind, what is consciousness is like very extensive, and he is one of those pioneers in this area of psychoanalytic theory. So when you say consciousness or awareness, that is what defines who we are. Who we are the consciousness, we are awareness. Okay. So when you say awareness, consciousness means awareness. So right now I'm sitting in this particular chair. What is me? Me is my awareness about my environment. So what about when I'm sleeping? This me still exists? This awareness still exists? Yes, it exists, but at a different level. Okay. So awareness has different levels. So according to Freud, awareness has 3 levels. So the first level is consciousness level, which is my current awareness. Let's say if I am awake now, I am aware of what I am doing. I am aware of my environment, my thought process. I am thinking about what I should talk in the next slide. So all those things are consciousness. I know my name. I know what is my job. I know what is happening around me. So all those things are consciousness. The second level is subconsciousness. Subconsciousness is awareness which is not active right now. So for example, if you ask me who's my school teacher, what is the name of my school teacher when I was studying 6th standard. Okay. So that awareness is underneath. I have to spend some time to dig deep into my memory and bring that into my awareness. Sometimes it can come out like, when I see something which reminds me of my school days, I'll remember all those memories, or those earlier awareness also comes out. So that is subconscious. Subconscious is something which we are not actively aware of. Those awareness are within us. The third level of consciousness is unconsciousness. Unconsciousness to a large extent seems to be non-existent, which means we may not even aware of those things. These are like deep inside these awareness, or these memories, or these experiences are buried inside our mind. Okay. And it takes very, very powerful efforts. It takes a lot of effort to bring out those awareness or information from that level of awareness. So unlike subconscious, which takes little bit of effort to remember, unconscious is like very, very difficult to understand or take information from. So what goes into unconscious? Experiences or awareness which are not very comfortable for us, or these kind of information which we are not comfortable with before about us, or the experiences we have underwent. Those memories are pushed deep inside our mind. Okay, so these memories or these awareness comes out in indirect form, maybe in our dreams, or according to Freud, he calls it slip of the tongue. When you are talking, suddenly you use a word which is irrelevant. It seems to be a mistake, but it is like you said it in real. Okay, but it may not be a mistake. According to Freud, these slip of the tongue or unconscious memory which comes out without even our control. Okay, so these are three levels of awareness, and these three levels of awareness plays a very important role in our behavior. So I'll stop here now for the time being. I would request you to read about Sigmund Freud and psychoanalytic theory. Just search in Google or internet, read what the psychoanalytic theory says, because there are a lot of interesting things Freud has said and his theory talks about. Okay, because I'm going to talk only limited amount of information about this theory. Okay, I'll stop here. See you in the next lecture. Take care.